You know, tucked away in the very last book of the Bible, there's this theological puzzle that has honestly stumped people for centuries. It's this contradiction that's been hiding in plain sight, and today we're going to unravel it together.
Okay, so here's the heart of the mystery, and it comes straight out of the book of Revelation. The text says the devil gets tossed into a lake of fire forever and ever. I mean, that sounds pretty final, right? But then, just a few lines before, it says that after 1,000 years, Satan is going to be let loose from his prison. So, what gives? Is the enemy gone for good, or is he making a comeback?
I mean, look at this side by side. On one side, Revelation 20:10, the devil is gone forever and ever. On the other side, Revelation 27, Satan shall be loosed. It really does look like a flat-out contradiction. But here's the thing. The key to solving this isn't about finding some kind of mistake. It's about understanding the names themselves.
So let's officially start our investigation. Think of this like a detective story, and our very first clue is right there in the identities of our two main subjects, Satan and the devil. Now, most of us, myself included, use the names Satan and the devil pretty much interchangeably, right? But what if the Bible is actually using them with very specific, very distinct meanings? What if that distinction is the very key that unlocks this entire puzzle?
Let's geek out for a second and look at the original languages. The word Satan actually comes from a Hebrew word that just means adversary or opponent. It's describing a role. Then you have the devil, which comes from the Greek diabolos, and that means accuser or slanderer. This points to a specific function. So one is about his fundamental nature, and the other is about his action. See? They're not just synonyms, they're describing two different aspects of the very same enemy.
So first, let's take a closer look at Satan. This name is pointing to the unseen spiritual power of opposition. Think of it as the nature of the enemy, that adversarial will that's always pushing back against God's purposes. It isn't tied to any one physical form.
The devil, though, is the manifestation of that spirit. It's what happens when the adversarial nature of Satan starts working through a physical vessel. You know, a person, a system, whatever it might be. That vessel is performing the function of the devil, the accuser.
And right there, that's it. That's the key that unlocks the whole paradox. It all comes down to the relationship between this unseen spirit and its physical vessel.
So let's just state it as clearly as possible. Satan is the spirit. The devil is the vessel. One is the invisible influence, and the other is the visible actor. Now, with that framework in mind, let's go all the way back to the beginning, to the very first time we see this enemy show up.
Okay, think about the Garden of Eden. First, we meet the serpent, just a creature in God's creation. Then, the unseen adversarial spirit, Satan, influences it. And by acting as the accuser, by slandering God's word, that serpent becomes the first devil, the very first physical vessel for Satan's will.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The Bible actually connects these dots for us. Revelation 12:9 just lays it all out, referring to one single entity as that old serpent. That's the vessel. Called the devil, that's its function. And Satan, the spirit behind the whole operation. 3 titles, 1 enemy.
All right, so now we have our key. Let's head back to the crime scene in Revelation 20 and see if this whole spirit versus vessel idea finally cracks the case for us.
And there it is. The paradox just dissolves. When the text says Satan shall be loosed, it's talking about the spirit being allowed one last season of influence. But when it says the devil was cast into the lake of fire, it's talking about the final, eternal judgment of that spirit's vessel. Its function of deception is destroyed for good. So it's not a contradiction at all. It's just two different stages of the enemy's final defeat.
So this interpretation gives us a really clear timeline of defeat. The biggest victory was won at the cross. That broke Satan's power. Then, during the symbolic 1,000 years of the gospel age, that spirit is restrained. Then you have the final test, where Satan is loosed for just a short time. And finally, the devil, the functioning, manifested enemy, is permanently taken off the board in the final judgment.
So let's zoom in on that final act, the lake of fire. What does it really mean for the devil to be cast into it? What is this final judgment all about?
What's really crucial to understand is that the lake of fire isn't some kingdom where the devil rules. It's the destination of his absolute and total defeat. It's a symbol of a final, irreversible judgment. The beast and the false prophet, which are symbols of corrupt world systems and religious deception, they're already there. It's the final end of the entire network of opposition, once and for all.
So if there's one thing to take away, it's this. The cross was the moment of victory. The lake of fire isn't a new battle. It's just the final visible enforcement of the sentence that was already handed down at the cross. It is the ultimate manifestation of a judgment that's already been won.
And that kind of brings us to a final thought. This whole incredible story begins with a lie, one that's whispered by a serpent in a garden. And it ends with the ultimate truth, the Lamb ruling from a throne in a city. It's this profound journey from deception to truth, and it shows that in the end, the lie gets completely consumed, and the truth, well, the truth reigns forever.